Hey everyone, I'm here to talk to you about a working man. That's right, a working man starring Jason Statham. Now, as you know, longtime watchers of this show are all aware that I'm a huge Jason Statham fan. Oh, love me some Jason Statham. I'm Jason Statham. I'm here to karate people to death. So let's get into it. Working Man is the second team up between Jason Statham and David Ayer. And after the BeeKeeper, I was pretty excited because I'll tell you straight up, I really liked the BeeKeeper. I enjoyed it a lot. It was a great action B movie, no pun intended. But it was a good time, even if I did take issue with the BeeKeeper's very Rorschach inkblot test style politics, where you could basically insert either party onto the villains pretty easily. Just saying, it's very empty politically. However, it's still a good time, although it still leans heavily populist. But the point is it's still a good time as far as B movie actions go. No pun intended with the B again. The point is, I loved The BeeKeeper. Really enjoyed it. Really big fan. It's a fun ass movie. Who doesn't want to see crypto bros getting fucking wasted by Jason Statham? I definitely want to see that. And that movie delivered on that promise. But I'm not here to talk about The BeeKeeper. I'm here to talk about a working man. Working man, to be fair, its politics are a lot more straightforward and a lot more conservative. Not like super conservative, but like conservative. I'll get into that more as we go along, but A Working Man is based on the novel Levon's Trade, which is written by comic book writer Chuck Dixon. Note, it is not a comic book. I guess I should just call him a writer who mostly does comic books. But Chuck Dixon, I can't lie, I grew up reading Chuck Dixon comic books, specifically Batman comics. At one point, Chuck Dixon was writing like half of the Batman titles. Although, to be fair, during the 90s, there were like 8 Batman titles. But he was out there writing Detective Comics, Nightwing, and Robin. The other Batman titles at the time were being written by, oh wait, he also wrote Catwoman. So yeah, he wrote 4. The other Batman titles at the time were written by Alan Grant, and who wrote Shadows of the Bat, and Denny O'Neil, who wrote Batman. And this is 3 very, very different people politically. Chuck Dixon, definitely a Republican. I look back on some of his comics and realize he had very socially conservative attitudes towards weed and premarital sex. And that didn't really click until I was an adult, what was going on there. Alan Grant, however, was part of the British invasion of comic book writers and was pretty trippy. He created the character Anarchy, which in fairness is just a Batmanification of V for Vendetta, who later comic book writers would go on to ruin with weird choices. But the point is that his character of Anarchy kind of represented a lot of Alan Grant's politics, and Alan Grant was also a transhumanist. He believed that human beings and technology would merge. And then you had Denny O'Neil, who put the communist in Green Arrow. No, there's not a wordplay there. Green Arrow is just a commie. But he was also writing, but that was during the 60s. Chuck Dixon was actually writing Green Arrow during the 90s, which is why it got weird. But anyways, let's get back to it. A Working Man. As you all know, I'm a huge fan of Jason Statham, and I will show up to see Jason's almost any movie that promises to show me Jason Statham karate chopping people to death. I'm there. I am there for that. Which is why I am disappointed to say that A Working Man really did not hit the sweet spot for me quite the same way the BeeKeeper did, and I'll get into it because it's a little bit confusing because they're a little bit of a mixed bag in terms of comparison. So first of all, the BeeKeeper, I will say, is tonally more fun. It's a little bit more colorful. It's a little bit more in your face. It is visually clearer to look at. That's a big deal. We'll get back to that. The BeeKeeper also has more one-liners and funny moments. But the BeeKeeper's story also isn't really super emotionally deep. Yes, he cares about that woman who killed herself, and he's going to get revenge. And obviously, he's going after groups of people that we all believe should be put down. Scammers. That's right. Scammers. Who doesn't want to see him killing some crypto bros? I'm here for it. 100%. Love it. But so like I'm saying, the BeeKeeper is more fun. But I will give a working man this. A working man works a little bit harder at making sure it's got that emotional center to it. Arguably, Jason Statham's acting in A Working Man is actually better and more nuanced than his acting in The BeeKeeper. But to be fair, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they are tonally very different movies. You see, this movie, despite being based on a Chuck Dixon novel, which I guarantee you is a pulpy piece of shit, it could be fun to read. I don't know. But I bet it's pulpy just based on some of the shit in this movie that the movie, for some reason, is not committing to. But the script version of this is written by David Ayer and Sylvester Stallone. And I gotta be honest here. Sylvester Stallone, you're a great guy. But like the most overrated Jason Statham movies all have one thing in common, and it's that they're written by Sylvester Stallone. But anyways, I don't know how many liberties Sylvester Stallone took with the script versus what Chuck Dixon wrote in the novel. Haven't read the novel. Like I said, he's one of my favorite Batman writers, but nowadays he writes a comic book about QAnon. God, that's disappointing. Chuck Dixon actually also one of the guys who created Birds of Prey, I think. I'll fact check that one. I can confirm he's one of the co-creators of Bane. But anyways, Working Man follows Jason Statham's character, a guy who we meet through an interesting montage that's supposed to set up sort of his backstory, I believe. It's very Bond-esque kind of sort of intro with a lot of like him being in the Royal Marines and shit. I mean, it's cool. It's a solid start to the film, to be honest. A little trippy. When we meet his character, he is friends with Michael Pena. Essentially, he is working on a construction company who's run by Michael Pena and his family. It's a nice family-owned business, very Republican here. And the film never tells us if they're legal immigrants or not. My guess is probably, because it's written by Chuck Dixon. But anyways, Michael Pena and his family do a really nice job of being convincingly friendly with Jason Statham and whatnot. And Jason Statham, he's Jason Statham. Now, Jason Statham gets to flex a little bit more of the emotional acting in this movie because the subplot of this film is that he also has a daughter who lives with his grandfather. Who lives with her grandfather. I assume it's on the mother's side because Jason Statham was at war when his wife, who was dealing with depression, killed herself. And now her father, the grandfather of Jason Statham's daughter, has custody of the daughter because, well, Jason Statham doesn't live the most stable life. He lives in a car, which is a huge red flag for most custody hearings. But anyways, the grandfather is presented as being kind of like a boomer liberal, which, fine, whatever. I won't deny that people like him exist. But come on, Chuck. I could just feel your little Republican fingers typing that out. I would be madder about this, but like the character is more nuanced than that. There is at least some like recognition of them being able to like connect later in the film, but that's not really important to my review if I'm being completely honest. Michael Pena's family has a daughter who we're introduced to as a very cool girl. She's going to college. She's good at business. She is the ideal smart girl. And one day at the site, some gang members come up to start harassing one of the questionably legal status members of the construction crew, and Jason Statham intervenes and saves that guy from an ass whooping. In the moment, and I wish I could say that I was excited by this moment, but it was actually the moment in the film where I became concerned that I was about to be disappointed by the movie. You see, okay, so look, I'm an action movie connoisseur, and nothing fucks up my day more than when shots are too tight and too shaky to see what's happening. And I was baffled by this, like absolutely fucking baffled by why this was happening, because I already saw the BeeKeeper, and the BeeKeeper looked good. Very first fight, the fight manages to be just barely acceptable to look at. I can just tell well enough what's going on to follow the action. And that's acceptable, but I don't understand why it's happening. I saw the BeeKeeper. There were some really good fights in the BeeKeeper. Whether we're talking about him taking on the guys in the barn, or whether we're talking about how him taking down the FBI agents in that one building, or the scene where he has the knife fight in the room full of glass windows. That scene's badass, by the way. Like, these scenes looked good, and and the action was easy to track, and the shots were far enough back that we could see what was happening. And for some reason, that is not what the fuck is happening in A Working Man. And I don't understand. Why does it look like shit now? Because, like, this is the thing that really pulled me out of the movie, is the action is a downgrade from the BeeKeeper in every way. Arguably, certain elements of this film are an upgrade from the BeeKeeper, specifically the nuance of performance and acting. Those are obviously better. But the action is a downgrade in almost every category. It doesn't look as clean. The fights aren't as good. Jason Statham does look cool as hell holding that small shotgun sideways. But, like, the actual martial arts fight scenes where he's karate kicking the shit out of people just look okay at best. And I do mean at best. The shooting fight action scenes look fine, but none of them last super long. There's a fucking cool fight scene in the back of an ambulance that, like, I just wanted to be able to see better. I would I don't know who is to blame, if it's the cinematographer or the editor who made these choices, but, like, it doesn't look as good as the BeeKeeper. Actually, hold on. We're going to figure this out. Okay. All right, I found the answers. And I now know who is to blame. Tragically, the BeeKeeper, the cinematography in the BeeKeeper was done by Gabriel Beristain, and the editing was done by Jeffrey O'Brien. Jeffrey O'Brien and Gabriel Beristain, you are the secret heroes who make the BeeKeeper what it is. And Working Man, your director of cinematography was Shaun White, and your editing was done by Fred Raskin. Now, look, gentlemen, I don't know what you do, what other movies you've worked on. I could look it up, and I probably will at some point. But you done fucked up. This movie looks like shit. Not everything, just the fights. Just the fights. You fucked up the fights. Seriously, David Ayer, don't hire these guys again. Don't do it. They get the other guys back. The guys who did your shit on the BeeKeeper, work with them. They're the secret sauce this movie is missing. If this movie had them working on it instead of Shaun White and Fred Raskin, I'd be singing a different tune right now. I'd be sitting here going, hey, man, it's got the action of the BeeKeeper with a deeper, more emotionally grounded character and stories, with a more nuanced acting performance by Jason Statham. Instead, I have to sit here and be like, well, you know, the acting and emotional depth of the Jason Statham movie is really the highlight of the film. Too bad the scenes where people get karate to death are barely better than the Bourne movies. Side note, the Bourne movies look like shit. Fuck you, Paul Greengrass. Buy a fucking bevel or tripod. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it, Greengrass. Stop it. But yeah, no, I now know who is to blame for why I like the BeeKeeper more than A Working Man. It's the cinematographer and film editor. They fucked up. They fucked up hard. Because And I want to stress this. There are things to like about A Working Man, specifically Jason Statham's performance and David Harbour. They're both really good in the movie. Love them. Their scenes between them are fantastic. Dig it. Why couldn't you just, like, make it look good, though? Just make it look good. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I haven't even talked about the story of this movie barely at all. Because basically what happens is some Russian mobsters kidnap the girl I was talking about before, to like sex traffic her to a rich pervert who is weird and eccentric and, you know, and whatnot. And then Jason Statham, of course, has to go on the hunt. And primarily, now this starts off with him doing something that I thought was like, oh my God, that's actually really smart. That's a cool idea, which is basically he would just kill his way up the chain and then wait for like the next group of people to come find out what's happened, cover it up for him, and then he just tracks them to the next target. And that's the first part of the movie. After that, it turns into a weird sequence of him just going to like shitty dive bars and then either bribing or intimidating people. And then pretending to buy drugs until eventually he meets the guy he's trying to meet, and so on and so forth. And then it plays out like basically that. Now, I will say the action in this movie is more legible, more viewable, more readable to the human eye than any of that bullshit Paul Greengrass is doing. Seriously, fuck you, man. Learn to shoot a fucking fight scene if you're going to do so many fucking fight scenes in your movie, Paul. Jesus Christ. Where was I? Sorry. But I mean, it all basically plays out how you'd think from there. He slowly hunts them all down. Honestly, it probably takes longer than it should in terms of efficient storytelling. Like, there's a certain amount of point where you're just like, how many times are we going to go to these fucking bars? It's worth noting that the couple of chase action scenes are also fine. Similar to Paul Greengrass, it's harder to fuck up a chase scene. Not express my frustration with this. It's a Jason Statham movie. And it's not like it's one of his like more cerebral Jason Statham movies that only get made in Britain. They're not like masterpiece theater or anything. I'm just saying, like, whatnot. But like, I came here to see Jason Statham karate people to death. And I get it, but like, it's like a C. It's like a C plus at best. Like, on a grading scale of Jason Statham action scenes, I walk away going, well, a couple of them had cool ideas. And that's not what I should be saying right now. I shouldn't be saying, yeah, it was fine to the action scenes. Okay, I saw the BeeKeeper. This is clearly not David Ayer's fault, is what I'm saying. Clearly, he just got the shittier editors and cinematographers on this one. And I'm not saying that they couldn't edit or cinematography. I mean, the rest of the editing and cinematography is fine. It's just the fight scenes. The fight scenes are trash. They're hideous. The cameras are too close. The cuts are too quick. We know Jason Statham is a good enough martial artist to look like he's doing martial arts in a fucking movie, because we've seen many more fucking Jason Statham fight scenes that were edited better than this. What is happening? Jason Statham actually knows martial arts. We don't have to crowd him with the camera and then let it shake all over the fucking place. We don't need edits that are barely a second in a fight scene. No, we want to see the action. We want to see the roundhouse kicks. We don't want to just have the camera just fucking flailing all over the place. And it's not like they're doing the kinetic camera thing either. For example, both Novocaine and Monkey Man are both action movies that use what I would describe as a kinetic camera. Now, kinetic camera is a little bit shakier than what I normally prefer, but kinetic camera actually makes sense because when they're doing the kinetic camera styles, the camera is part of the movement itself. Here it's just shaky as shit, and it's too close, and it's edited together too rapid fire. This is Jason Statham. We know he can sustain martial arts for a long cut. Give us a fucking long cut. We want to be able to track action with our fucking eyes. Jason Statham is better than the edits in this movie would imply. Your action should look better than Iron Fist, for God's sakes. Now that I've done that rant, which is my major complaint about the movie, I could get into some of the weird storytelling issues. Actually, no, I said I was going to address some of the politics, and I'm going to address the politics. So, like, the movie is weird in the fact that it's every once in a while you like watch a conservatively minded piece of media, and there's a certain point in the movie where you realize that the writers don't realize the thing they're actually criticizing is capitalism. What do I mean by this exactly? Despite the fact that I sincerely doubt that either Chuck Dixon or Sylvester Stallone would ever have a serious critique of capitalism. If you break down certain elements of the film, it is kind of anti-capitalist. And the thing is the movie doesn't seem to understand that it is this thing. Let me explain. Throughout the film, when Jason Statham is confronting these Russian mobsters, the Russian mobsters essentially lay out arguments for like, hey man, whatever, this is just business. There's a line in the film actually where one character is like, money doesn't care where it comes from, which is the most hard-assed, like, that is like dead ass, like how capitalism works. Capitalism does not care where the money comes from. The movie does not understand that it is essentially holding up supply side economics as basically being morally fucked. Because that's what's happening in the film. The film is literally about this supply and demand dynamic between the buyer and the human sex trafficker and how the human sex traffickers justify it in their minds. And like at the end of the day, it's like every one of those arguments they make is just that's capitalism. What I know about Sylvester Stallone and Chuck Dixon tells me that that's not what they're trying to say, which is really funny to me. The film just a lot of conservatives on a deep instinctual level understand that capitalism is wrong and bad, but they cannot bring themselves to acknowledge it because it's so built into their core tenets and beliefs. They have been programmed to believe that capitalism is as good as Jesus. But Jesus and capitalism didn't even get along. Black markets are still markets, guys. At the end of the day, though, I will say that I still got some enjoyment out of the film. It still delivered a couple of key things that I want from a Jason Statham movie. Primarily, Jason Statham walking around, swaggering like a badass, intimidating evil motherfuckers and drowning them in their pools. Because the cinematography can't fuck up Jason Statham intimidating a motherfucker. There's still a lot of great scenes where he gets to do that. And if that's what you love about Jason Statham, then there's still a lot of that stuff in the film that is not ruined by choppy fucking edits. I described this film as a downgrade from the BeeKeeper. And in terms of action, that's 100% true. But in terms of like having a more grounded, grittier, more like type of story, then you would technically say that this is an improvement. So the question is, what would you rather watch? Would you rather watch a movie where Jason Statham has a more nuanced performance and gets to do all his badass swaggering around? Or would you rather watch a Jason Statham movie where he does that stuff, but the performance isn't as nuanced and the story isn't as deep? Emotionally, I mean, neither of them is particularly high-minded, but the action just isn't as well put together. I guess that's the comparison. What do you want most out of your Jason Statham movies? This film delivers on some Jason Statham. It's just really a shame that the action scenes are just so below where the Beekeeper was. Like, if this film could have built off of the action of the Beekeeper into a story that has a little bit more emotional depth, with Jason Statham giving a more nuanced performance, that would have fucking killed. That would have been great. That would have been top tier Jason Statham. Instead, we get this, where it's just kind of like, yeah, it's it's fine. It's fine, I guess. Yeah, it's it's fine. Thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment, hit that bell if you're watching this on YouTube. You can also email the program at rubenuncut@gmail.com. Please have a wonderful whatever, wherever, whoever you are. Unless you're the guys who edited this movie. In that case, I hope a bird shits on your car a lot. That's not too bad, right?